By the time I was 17, almost took my life in a high-speed chase. I was drunk and high and had a handgun. My plan was to pull the gun. I mean, there's a ton of stories of like almost getting shut down by Facebook. I ended up growing that 150% compounded year over year for 4 years. Became a millionaire at 27. I literally remember I was on this road called Von Harvey. Mark calls me up. He goes, "You get $1 million in retained earnings in your bank account." You know, my rule is I live off 10% of my income. So if I want more, I gotta make more. And
this is the Content Capitalists Podcast. We talk to business owners who've used video to grow their businesses to $1 million a year or more. How they did it, what worked, what didn't. Welcome to the Content Capitalists with your host, Ken Okazaki.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. And this is the show where we interview people who are doing at least $1 million or more in their business and are crushing it with content, especially video. Today I've got with me a very special guest. His name is Dan Martell. He is a very, very high level, what should I say, entrepreneur, coach, business founder. The list is really, really long. But instead of me, just rambling on, I just want to introduce you. And Dan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Ken, my pleasure, man. Obviously, I think you asked me about like reading my bio. Probably isn't. It's just awkward having somebody read you like your highlight reel. But I mean, in short, and we can dive into any aspect of this. I'm best known in the world as like the software as a service guy. So SaaS is what it's called, which means not only have I built and scaled and exited, 8-figure software companies over the years. Venture-backed 2 companies. Most people know Clarity.fm, so I built that. But then since then, I've also founded SaaS Academy, which is the #1 coaching program in the world for software. So I've coached Alex and Layla Hermosi, Alex Becker from Hyros, Garrett J. White, Ryan Dice, like all the influencers that have SaaS products are probably clients of mine. And then I have High Speed Ventures, which is kind of like my personal family office for investing. I've invested in companies like Intercom and Hootsuite and Udemy, and close to 50 other software companies. And I buy software companies, I invest in stuff. So like, that's who I am. But like, I'm passionate about business and growth and mindset, as well as, super deep on the software side of things.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're not watching the video, I just want you to get a picture. Like, Dan is really, really fit. And you trained for a triathlon just recently, right? And you competed. You do something called 75 hard, like pretty much on loop. I'm not sure how many times you've done that. He is not the kind of nerd geek you're going to expect behind, in his mother's basement, just, clacking keys away. I think you're what I would call winningest in like multiple areas of your life. You've got a beautiful home, wife and kids, software, coaching, investments. Now, I think a lot of people who might be hearing this, might have this feeling like that's like so far removed from where I am. Could you take us back to before you are the Dan Martell that everybody knows today to just getting started with your first business? What was that like?
Well, first off, I grew up in a really challenging environment. And it turns out lots of entrepreneurs have, but my story's kind of unique. I ended up in jail twice by the time I was 17. Almost took my life in a high-speed chase. I was drunk and high and had a handgun in a backpack sitting next to me. And, my plan was to pull the gun and let the cops do their job. But, through crazy twist and fate, the gun got stuck and ended up sober in a jail cell. So there's like people that start at like the bottom, and then there's people that start in a big hole, and like that was me. I spent 6 months in prison. I got out at 17 into rehab center. I spent 11 months there, and it was actually at the end of this rehab center, after I like learned what made me tick and who I was and rebuilt my self-esteem and my self-worth, that I discovered this yellow book on Java programming, because the rehab center was built in an old church camp, and I was helping Rick, the maintenance guy, clean out one of these cabins, and there's just an old computer and this yellow book, and I followed the instruction. I got the computer to say hello world, and that was, it was like a baseless sense of accomplishment because like I thought like, oh, maybe I'm really good at programming because I followed these instructions and but it turned out to just be something I was passionate about. And I got into computers right at the beginning of the internet, 97, 98. And, but I mean, first two companies are complete failures. So first company I ever started. So there's always these projects that we start. So the first thing I ever built that somebody paid me for was a CD burning, essentially to burn CDs for themselves. So like I built.
Was that a software solution or more like?
Yeah, it was this product. I built it in this programming language called Visual Basic. You installed it on your computer. It connected to my computer, and it would download all the songs that I had downloaded on Napster.
So you're in the pirate game.
Oh yeah. This is like before iTunes. Like
Nice.
I'm 41, so I mean this is a long
Same.
time ago. But I mean, that was like the first time I ever made money on the internet was building this kind of utility app for my friends. And then the first company I ever incorporated shortly after I was like 18, 19 was a site called Maritime Vacation, which was like Airbnb in 99, which allowed people that had bed and breakfasts and whatnot list their cottages on the internet. And I remember like I didn't know how to get customers. I pulled... I found this like tourism magazine that had a list of like all the bed and breakfasts and cottages, and I paid my little brother like $3 an hour to enter it into a Microsoft Access database, and then did a mail merge and like did mail spam, right? Like direct mail, what they'd call it today. I didn't know it was called that, and told people if they wanted a web page for their bed and breakfast, send me $30 and some photos, an extra $10 if you want your images back. And I remember my dad picking up the mail. Again, I'm 18, 17, living with my dad. And like he was like, what did you do? Because there's all these envelopes addressed to me. And then when you open them, there's cash in them. Like people actually sent me.
Oh, there wasn't even checks. Just
No,
cash. Cash in the
Yeah.
envelope.
Yeah. And it was Maritime Vacation.
Probably thought you were doing drugs, right? Like
Yeah, no, my dad was like, what did you sell them? Like, is this a network marketing thing or are you doing a Ponzi scheme?
And was he asking like out of suspicion or out of being
No,
impressed?
there was suspicion. My dad is still suspicious of me today, and I love him. And he literally was just here. I bring him to all my events, and I think
like,
as a parent,
is this
you just
legal?
always see your kid as a 12, 13-year-old troublemaker. Like it's no matter how successful I are, no matter how many times. I mean, yeah, I've done all the stuff from flying private to McLaren's, all that stuff. He still thinks one day he's gonna wake up and like.
It's all going to go
get
poof,
arrested, or
right?
It's all, it's just hilarious. So
I just want to. I remember, like, I think we're almost exactly the same age. And when I was 16, 17, I got my hands on my very first computer. Windows 95 was the bomb, and I started making websites too. But I was really into, at that age, I'm looking for nude girls because that's where you could find them is the internet, right? And then I discovered Photoshop, and just for fun, because I couldn't find any nude pictures of Sandra Bullock, I stuck her face on a porn model and I uploaded some form. I can't even remember what. And some guy's just like, dude, where'd you find that? It's just like, I made it. And he goes, I'll pay you $300 if you could do this, 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 and this. That was my first business venture, is doing fake porn, celebrities. That didn't really scale, obviously, but it was about the same time. I was just like, I cannot believe somebody's gonna pay me to, do this fun thing that's on the side. I think probably not a great example to start with, but I had that spark, that entrepreneurial spark. I was just like, I can actually make money. This is interesting. And of course, it evolved into other things. But if that didn't happen, if someone said, I'll pay you to create something, then
who knows?
I think it has to happen to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Who's an entrepreneur. That's cool. So teenager, started a few businesses on this, website building for local businesses. And at what point, we only have an hour together, but there must have been some point where you had a certain level of success where someone said, I want to pay you to coach me. Do you remember that point?
That came, that was a long time after. I mean, I essentially did Maritime Vacation. That failed because the guy that owned atthecottage.com just out executed. I was a software nerd. I literally didn't talk to people, It's funny because like Ken, you even said like, Dan, if you're not watching the video, I know what I look like, right? Like I get it, but you go back to 21, Dan, and I'll post it on the internet. I weighed 260 pounds. I was more introverted. I wrote code. I smoked cigarettes. Like, I wasn't who I am today. And like, the journey has just been and continues to be like, I will always, like, next year when I meet you, Ken, I'll introduce myself, because I'm not the same Dan that met you today. Like, that's just, my growth game is strong, and I'm okay with that, and I push myself, right? So there was like, these years of like, I started at 17, and it wasn't until I was 24 that I finally had some success in my third business. I hired a coach, a guy named Bob Simpson, who was an E-Myth coach. And I worked with him for 2 years. That gave me the fundamentals of business. I ended up growing that 150% compounded year over year for 4 years. Became a millionaire at 27, exited that company at 28, moved to San Francisco to see if any of my crazy ideas would like hold water with some of the best tech entrepreneurs in the world, because I grew up in Eastern Canada. And then it was while I was in San Francisco that I started Flowtown. And I mean, there's a ton of stories of like almost getting shut down by Facebook. Then I did Clarity after we exited that company. Again, raised 1.6 million from like Mark Cuban, a bunch of amazing investors. The stories are numerous, but the coaching came after Clarity. I started a YouTube channel. My buddy Travis Houston out of San Diego. He told me, he's like, you should start a YouTube channel talking about this stuff, because we'd go for lunch and I just share all these ideas, and he's like, man, you really got to put that on the internet. And like, San Diego is kind of like the Hollywood of internet marketers. It's like, if you're in finance, you go to New York. If you're an actor, you go to Hollywood. And if you're internet marketing, San Diego seems to attract a lot of people. And I'd never done video before that. I advised, I invested, I coached, indirectly, but I never shot.
So what was your reaction when he said that? Like, what did you feel inside?
I'll be honest with you. Like, there was a part of me that was like, that scares me. And because it scared me, I thought that might be something I got to do. So I've always kind of used things that initially are jarring, and I'm like, whoa, that makes my heart flutter a little bit, to go like, oh, there could be something there. And what happened was like, I'm an entrepreneur. Even though I've been blessed to not have to work for a long time now, there's never going to be a day where I wake up that I don't want to create. I want to build stuff, and I have teams of hundreds of people now. Like, it's pretty awesome. But I still want to build, and because of that, I wanted to work on some skills that would make me a better creator. And I thought the ability to get in front of a camera, the ability to communicate, the ability to learn how to tell stories, to train people, like, that's a really good skill set to add to the quiver if you want to be a world-class CEO and entrepreneur. So that was the motivation. And then I also had 2 young boys at the time. They were like, Noah was 9 months and Max was like, they're 11 months apart. So like 9 and a year and a bit. And I just started my YouTube channel teaching everything I'd ever learned about life. That was like the first phase of it. And then the business stuff came after that, because I kind of ran out of stuff to say. And then...
So what is this, like 10 years ago-ish, as far as timeline goes?
7
years ago.
7 years ago, yeah. 7, yeah, my kids are 8 and 9, so it would have been 7 years ago.
This question popped up just a second ago, and I hold your thought. As you just casually mentioned, so I became a millionaire at 27, right? Now, a lot of people have a lot of emotional attachment to 7 figures or 8 figures or 6 figures if they're not there yet. For you, was it kind of like, 7 figures, and then just keep going? Or was that like a momentous thing for you?
I'll tell you the truth. I remember the day, because I was in my hometown. I traveled a lot back then, like 200 days a year. And I was driving, running errands, and my accountant, Mark, called me. And I literally remember I was on this road called Von Harvey in the city in between errands, and Mark calls me up and he goes, hey, Dan, you want to hear something cool? I said, what? He goes, you get $1 million in retained earnings in your bank account. Like, not like revenue, like actual cash in my bank account. That he's the one that saw it, because he wanted to call me to ask me, what are you doing with this? Like, are you putting it into treasuries, GIC? Like, you should do something with it. You shouldn't just let it sit on it. And like, he was more excited about it than me, because I was so focused on building that I was trying to figure out, like, how do I improve the thing I've got going? Like, the money, good or bad, it was never the purpose of what I did. I think originally when I started the third company was because I just wanted to build a team of world-class people. And the only way to do that, because I'm not a nonprofit, is be able to pay them. The only way I can pay them is I need to learn how to make money. And if I make money and I can hire people, then I can decide, because I just was sick of working with people that I didn't feel were that bright. There's no bigger rhyme or reason to it. I mean, I've always lived a pretty straightforward life. You know, my rules, I live off 10% of my income. So if I want more, I got to make more. And it's just, you know, I think wealth is a ratio.
Very
and
cool.
it was never, there was never an emotion about it. But at the same time, I understand, because I coach so many founders now, that some people, they have these thermostats set about like what's possible for them.
Yeah.
And many of them, it's just really low, right?
Yeah.
Like, but for me, it's always, you
hang out with people like Mark Cuban, then your perspective changes very quickly, right?
You just, especially like for me, moving to San Francisco is probably one of the most expanding decisions I ever made, because I went from like being the big fish in a small pond on the Eastern Canada. I won awards for Entrepreneurship of the Year, Investor of the Year, like all these things. And then I moved to San Francisco, like downtown Dolores Park, like in the heart of it. And I'm nobody, like I didn't go to Stanford or Berkeley. I didn't sell my company for $1 billion. Like I didn't invest in Facebook, Uber, like any of these things, right? And this is even before those companies, but it was humbling, but I loved it because it really made me think bigger. Like you don't meet people in San Francisco that are doing anything less than building a $1 billion company. And that mindset was ingrained in me. It's what I aim for today, like multiple 10 billions of dollars. Like to me, like I just think people don't give themselves a long enough time horizon, and they don't understand like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. I'm 42. I'll probably live to 100 and some. I'm always going to be building companies. I continue to redeploy capital, and like it's kind of inevitable, right? Yeah. Like it will happen. Is there a window of 7 to 10 years where it's going to happen? Yeah, probably. But so to me, it's more about like looking at my life and optimizing for the quality of my day that I focus on. And it's something I teach. It's called the Buyback Principle. And that's, most people know me for that lately. I feel like just teaching people how to like scale their companies. But, you know, I know the topic is content and capitalism. So that's what I'm here to teach. But yeah, the YouTube channel came after being successful. Yeah. And in hindsight, I probably should have started a long time but I had been blogging and tweeting for years.
So content creation was already a part of your routine.
Yeah.
And then
teaching everything I know is part of my culture and my beliefs. But the video production stuff was new.
Now, you've been going every single week without missing anything for 7 years. Is that right?
Never missed a day.
Never missed a day. And
or a week, yeah. Every Monday for 6 years, 7 years.
Is a part of that $1 billion type of vision you have, where you feel like, whether it's, you know, it's not tomorrow, maybe not even, you know, a year from now, but somehow this is going to help me get there. Is that what keeps you doing it?
Not anymore. No. So what's interesting is when I decide to do something, I always give myself 10 years. So when I started the YouTube channel, I won't start it if I'm not willing to commit 10 years. It's like I won't start a company if I can't see myself doing it for 10 years, right? Even if I exit, like I exited Flowtown in 2.5, Clarity in 3, that's fine, but I was committed to a decade, right? Like at minimum, this is a problem I want to solve. I'm passionate about this problem. I can give myself a decade. So when I started the YouTube channel, I gave myself a decade of producing a video every Monday for 10 years. And so like I got 3 years left. After that, it's TBD, but at least I did at least 10 years. In regards to like where my wealth is going to come from, probably not the billion stuff. Like that's not going to come from YouTube. YouTube was almost like my desire to serve. So I just thought it was such a cool trade. Okay, this is the thinking is I can get better at communicating by teaching what I know. I can learn more because now I have an outlet. And because of that, it will make me a better entrepreneur to do other stuff, high speed, buy companies, lead, like, because now I have CEOs that report to me, right? So it's like all those things will be better. And I'll have this library I can point them to, my public YouTube channel, to like go deeper on things that I've been talking about. And if something ever happens to me, my kid's got this crazy library of all my crazy stories and ideas and things that I've ever done in my life. Like it's literally 100% there. So that was the trade. And I mean, at the time, I also had one of my good buddies get diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I remember talking to him about, he had 3 girls, and just like, I remember asking him, I said, what do you do? And he goes, I've already shot the videos. And I'm just like, man, I can't even imagine, like he already shot the wedding video, the engagement video, the graduate from university video. And
messages to his kids.
Yeah.
For all those
he
moments.
took the time to shoot the videos to each one of his daughters and all these milestones in life. He wanted to say what he had to say. And I thought, I don't have to wait to find out I have a terminal illness to share what I think about life and business and success and mindset and all that stuff. And that's what this YouTube channel's become.
Wow.
And now it also turns out to be a great lead gen platform for an 8-figure business. So it is what it is, but it was never, when
That's
I
so
started,
interesting.
that wasn't the case.
Yeah. The biggest question I get, like I'm on when someone wants to work with us, a lot of times the CEO is bought into it. It's like, we got to do this. And we talk about the price, they're happy with it. Then the CFO gets involved because, if it's an 8-figure business, there's usually a CFO involved. And then their question is, what's the ROI? And it's just something that for some people, if there's not like within that quarter a return, they won't put money in it. And I think that might be smart, like for, a certain type of thing. But when it comes to content creation, I think there's two types. There's the people like Gary Vee, and I'm going to I wouldn't say his personality and you are the same, but the intention is to put your message out to the world. It's not to nickel and dime and track every single view and see if it's going to turn into more business. It's more like, no, I'm just going to create content because I think the world needs to hear this. And then there are people who are very transactional. Maybe they come from like an ads or media buying background, and those people, like they put $1 in, they expect 3 out, or whatever that ratio is for their market category. And if those numbers don't add up with organic, then they freak out. And then those people are really, really hard to work with in my industry. But do you see, like with SaaS, do you see merit to both types of thought processes around it?
Well, I mean, the world's changed quite a bit, especially with attribution. So it's been really tough. And like, I spend a lot of time, like I'm good at a few things, and demand gen and like sales and marketing are definitely in my wheelhouse now. Skills that I had to acquire. I mean, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars per month on paid acquisition, on paid media channels. So, I work with my CROs and I see what's working. And there's an element of like, we want certain campaigns have to be ROI driven, and other ones you need to consider is like brand, right? So like that's where Gary Vee talks about this, and a lot of early entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, they don't understand the value of brand. Like the value of me producing content for somebody that has no clue who I am. Maybe it's an investment I want to make, or a new partnership, or an influencer I want to invite to collaborate maybe at one of my events, to be able to like go and consume some of that content and learn more about you and really dive deep, and it costs you nothing. Like this is the part that I love, is I think if you do marketing right, it'll help more people than your product or service ever will, and it costs you zero. Like unless you're running ads to it, but to me it's the organic side. Meeting a 50, or like I get it all the time on Instagram, right? I've got big social media audiences, and they message me and they're like, I've watched every one of your videos and this is what I've done with my life. And I'm just like, that's incredible. There was no coffee meeting. There was no pick my brain. There was no take 5 minutes at an event. It was literally, there's my strategies. And I think like that is the most exciting part of the world we live in that did not exist when I was starting off in entrepreneur world, is you can literally, and this is what I'm going to recommend everybody do. Unfollow everybody you're following if you don't feel like you're succeeding in life, and go and subscribe only to people that have succeeded the way you want to, okay? And this isn't a judgment decision on who you think is successful, right? So you can follow Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, whoever you want to follow, but follow like 25 people. Google online, like go online and search like top 25 influencers on Instagram, and just consume their information, because it's crazy that Like the truth is I share, and Ken, if you follow my stuff on Instagram, like I put it all out there. I talk about comp strategies, sales stuff, everything. It's like 100% out there, and it costs you nothing. And I'm somebody that does stuff, right? I don't believe in taking advice from people who haven't done things before, and I teach from my own experience, and I'm still in the game, playing on the field. I'm not and I don't ever plan not to be. So it's kind of crazy that, and you follow these people, and you get to see behind the scenes. Man, that did not exist. The only way you got that back in the day is you had to find a mentor that was willing to take a meeting with you. And maybe you met with them once every 3 months, and you still didn't really get to see or kind of be around it to the degree that you can now by the content that's being put out. It's friggin' amazing. I think it's just incredible.
It makes so much sense. I think the video that first came up on my radar that you made, and it was probably a few years ago, I think ADHD is my superpower or something like that.
It's one of my most popular videos on my channel.
I think every entrepreneur has it to some degree, and they relate. And I remember when I first discovered I had it, it was the most liberating time of my life. I was just like, now everything makes sense. Why I can or can't, or like everything just locked into place. And that I bought a book, and it just described me to a T.
Which book did you buy? Driven to Distraction?
It was the gift of actually it was dyslexia. Sorry, the gift of dyslexia. But then that got me. The book, The Gift of Dyslexia, also mentioned ADHD, and that chapter in the book I think got me. And actually, I was a school teacher a long time ago, and I was informed that one of my students had dyslexia, so I thought I better research this so I can help them. I bought the book and I discovered I had dyslexia. So that was an interesting thing that happened, not related to what we're talking about. But when you described not just what ADHD, the effect of it, but actually how it was helping you, that flipped everything for me. And it wasn't stuff I didn't know, but hearing it from somebody who is at a level that I wanted to be at made all the difference. I hear my wife nagging me about the same thing 30 times. And then somebody who I'm paying $5,000 a month to as a mentor or coach, they tell me the same thing. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I go there, I go home. My wife's just like, I've been telling you that for 10 years. And I realize the same thing happens to your followers, your listeners. When you're creating content, you don't have to be original all the time. But if it's coming from you, then it's going to have a different impact on the listener because of who you are, or even if they've never heard of you, if you're not famous in their mind, sometimes you just need to hear from a different perspective. And you probably, did you ever face that imposter syndrome where like, oh, this has been said, or I'm not the expert? Did that ever happen to you when you were creating content?
When I first started, 100%, when I first started producing content, like at the end of the day, I am the byproduct of reading 1,500 books, attending 100+ seminars, working with coaches, being around billionaires. The original ideas that I have is few and far between. I'm just a fan of investing in myself and research and studying and having really meaningful conversations that lead me to insight. But the truth is like, the philosophies are not mine, right? Like I've read all the great books on personal development. So I had a hard time because like you said, Ken, I didn't feel like these original ideas. And one of my mentors, this guy named Gare, he goes, at the end, like what people want is your perspective on the thing. It doesn't matter if you were the originator of it, right? And as often as I can, I always cite, hey, I read this thing from this person, or I heard this person say this, or a long time ago I was inspired by this person who wrote about this, to give credit to them. But then I share my version of that, my story behind it, my metaphor interpretation. And that's what people resonate, right? It's just like, like music. You can like, Jay-Z and Tim McGraw. Like that's what's so fun about this world of content is you have two people say the same thing in their own voice, and certain people resonate more with this person, some people resonate more with this person, and they could be saying the same thing, and that's totally awesome. And that's why I like to shine the light on other creators, because it takes nothing away from me. And I think if the more you give, the more you get. So if you have other people, they're like, hey, I really like this shout out. This guy gave me some feedback, and I like his stuff, and you get their audience. And yeah, I think people think they need original ideas is crazy. I think the mistake we make, and I was guilty of this in the first few videos, and luckily I have good friends of mine that called me out on it. is, sharing a non-original idea and trying to make it your own, right? Like I often say this, it's like, that is a Winston Churchill quote. So you might often say it, but you should probably give,
I've seen that too many times, and somebody very famous got called out for that very publicly.
Yeah, when you start though, it's kind of natural. It's like, well, I don't. And honestly, sometimes I just forget. It's like I'm lazy. I didn't put the effort to Google who actually said this originally, right? But and every once in a while you do put something together that's original. Like for me, the Buyback Principle, and but again, I mean, is that really original? It's a remix of like 15 different things I've learned over the years. I just packaged it differently.
Yeah. I was interviewing Taki just like the day before yesterday, who we both know. And everything he quoted, he just said the name right after, like this, by so-and-so, by so-and-so. And then at the end, we're talking about gear and stuff, about cameras. And I said, I don't know who said this, but the best camera you've got is the one you've got with you. And then I happened to Google it, and it's someone named Chase Jarvis. And now I will always remember to quote him or his name whenever I say that, because I tell my clients that all the time. So, and I think that a lot of people feel like it's going to take away from their authority, but the opposite happens. People trust you more because you're not so, what do you call it? You're not so insecure that you need to claim other people's success.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I love that you brought up Taki because he's one of my best buds and a mentor and a friend. Like, I mean, it's cool that like having people like him in your life, because he has done so much personal development in his world is why I trust him. So like when he shares with me, like I paid to go learn from this person, I go, well, I could pay all those people to learn the same stuff, or I can just pay Taki and he's going to teach me all the best stuff that he learned from those people. And that's why even to this day, I've been working with Taki for 5 years, happily invest in that program because he's just a consummate friggin' student, right? And he's a great example of citing other people.
Yep, absolutely. And soon people will be citing you. It's going to happen. Can we talk a bit about how do you plan your content? Where do you come up with the topics? What do you talk about? What do you avoid talking about on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I mean, my ideal customer profile has kind of changed over the years. Right now, it's 100% software. We call it software scaling Sam. He's 38 years old, 2 kids, has a business doing $50K a month in recurring revenue. So like we're very clear who we sell to. The way I've always done it, and this is my strategy, and again, it's a remix of a bunch of different people, but like the first part is a node to Ryan Levesque, who created this process called the Ask Method. So we email our list of people that are perfect fit customers. So that's, people that actually have SaaS products, and we ask them a question: when it comes to scaling your SaaS business, what is the biggest challenge you face? That response drives my content. Now, I've been doing that now for 4 years, so I've answered most of those questions. So what's crazy is my team will actually reply to people that answer that question and give them the link to the video they just didn't know existed. So, but everyone.
So your team has to know everything. They have to have gone through your content and have.
Well, we have an Airtable, and they,
okay,
descriptions.
So they could just cross-reference.
Yeah, they just search. Okay. They're like fundraising. It's like, oh, there's 4 videos. Oh, that's the one on how to find investors. They reply and go, does this answer your question?
So it's like the best FAQ type of,
Yeah, well, that was the original intent of the YouTube channel, was like, I want to have a library of everything I know, so that if I'm working with somebody and I want to teach them stuff, I don't have to spend the time to teach them. Like that was it was almost like a life hack. It's like I get all these questions via email or direct messages. I would rather reply with the answer, but I don't have time to do one-offs all the time. And so that's how I get the hit list of what to produce. And then what I do is 3 times a year. So I actually go into my studio and I do 8 videos per session. So 2 times 8, 16, 16 times 3 should work out to close to 52. It's probably not exactly, but sometimes I'll shoot a couple extra. But essentially 3 times a year I'll produce, so 6 days a year I'll produce 100 or a 12 months worth of content. And I have a whole process for changing my shirt.
This sounds really similar to what I used to do, but pre-pandemic, I think we talked about this. I had a program called 52 and 2, where we shoot 52 videos in 2 days, and there's like a 2-month process where we plan and do all that. And that's how I was shooting videos for Grant Cardone and Russell Brunson and Dean Graziosi and stuff. We'd rent a luxury location and we'd shoot 52 videos in 2 days. set changes. It was a lot of fun, but also really, really intense. Just drawing that out of them. And but for you, you're not thinking like every single week I got to shoot a video. It's just you get focused.
No, I don't. I only do it 3 times a year.
3 times a year. That's really cool. And does your team help you with the content ideas? Is there someone there prompting you, or is it just you doing everything?
Yeah. So like my job is to shoot the video. Everything else is not me. So I don't even get involved anymore in what to shoot anymore. The outlines of the video, putting them on the thing, the studio, the post-production. Again, I teach a framework called the Buyback Principle, which is pick the thing that you do that makes you the most money and lights you up the most. That's your kind of, the buyback quadrant. And then everything else, if you can afford it because your business is growing, have other people support you. So yeah, today I don't do any of it. When I started, I did it all. Except video editing.
Okay. So when you started, were you actually editing your own videos too?
No,
I
can do it. I mean, I know how to use iMovie. You know what? I'm lying because in the early days,
iMovie doesn't even exist anymore. Actually, it does.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure it does. But like, in the early days, I would. And what's unique about me is I also decided from day one to always shoot my videos in one take. So that's kind of unique because...
So all the way through in one take?
Yeah, it's like I'll have an outline for a video and I'll start. And if in the middle I'll be like, oh, that's really part 3, let's do this. I'll start at 1, come back to 2, and then we'll do 3. And I'll just leave that in the video.
And the editors will take care of it, right?
No, I don't edit it out. There's no jump cuts.
Okay. So it's as if you have a live audience pretty much.
I literally don't care. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest lessons your listeners can take away is act as if you're talking to a friend. And if I was talking to a friend, I wouldn't be like, 1 second. All right, let's do that again. But what's funny is you could, but leave it in.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of videos, if you watch them, I mess up and I just leave it in and I keep going. Like in the grand scheme of things, we think like everybody's going to screw. I mean, this is the stuff I used to think about when I started. It's like, what if I misquote a data point? What if I say I was 17, but I was really 18? Or what if I said it was a $500,000 contract and it was really a $300,000 contract? Like, honestly, I stopped caring when I realized nobody else cared. Like, there's this great quote, don't know.
Only if you're running for president is someone going to dig that deep.
and the truth is like, nobody's memory is perfect. I can prove it. I remember asking my parents about some details of my childhood, and my mom and dad both had completely different stories from my story. So there was like my version, my mom's version, my dad's version, and they were wildly different. So it's like, I'm pretty sure my version was right, but I mean, that was 25 years ago. Maybe I was wrong. So I just think nobody's paying attention that much. And there's that quote, whoever said it, don't know, but people that care don't matter, and the people that matter don't care. And I just kept, I would just keep shooting. And the reason I did that is because I didn't want to get dependent on a teleprompter and edits. So the whole point of me starting my YouTube channel was to be able to communicate, right? So give me a concept. I know the 5 points I want to talk about. I know how to start and finish the thing, and I just share. I mean, I just shot yesterday.
I mean, you posted something on Instagram not long ago where I saw you just this is a ring binder, and you just had some notes hand sketched, and that looked like 5 or 6 maybe bullet points for a video you're going to shoot. Is that pretty much how you do it?
That's how I do it. Yeah, I don't even put it on it. I wish I had them here because yesterday I was doing these new on-ramp videos for a new program we're launching, and like I outline it in a Google Doc, and then I have a house manager, Betty. She actually puts it on these big stickies, and then she puts it on like this thing in front of the studio, and then it's just like the outline. And I shot 6 videos plus 3 sales videos in 3 hours. So that's a lot it's 9 videos, each one 7-8 minutes. And they were 1 take. It was literally like, because I've been doing this for so long. Like,
yeah.
It's
like picking up the phone and talking to someone, right? You can't edit it. It just comes out.
Yeah, but because you also know, like, the first thing I ask myself is how am I going to start and how am I going to end? What story am I going to tell to build proof and credibility? What are the 3 to 5 points I want to make? Is there any specific metaphors I want to use to reinforce it? And at a high level, I do have like this content outline in my head, but I'm also good, Ken, going like, you know what? I think sometimes you got to look at life this way. And I slow down to try to figure out what I want to say. And then I say it. And I don't worry that I took a second or two to pause, because like good video, you actually need tonality difference. When I first started, if you look at my first video, I was just like, I was like super freaking.
Everybody is. Yeah. Everybody is. Now, it's so intense, and your hands are all sweaty and everything, and talking too fast.
And today, it's watch it, and I talk just like I talk to Ken. I talk to a friend. If I had a person in my office right now, this is how we'd talk.
Love it. When you now this is your YouTube channel, and pretty much what I've noticed when I looked, you just have an intro and an outro, and you're straight through. However, Instagram and TikTok, it's a very different thing. Tell me about that process.
So what's unique about the way I do it is the wealth creation for me is not in the content, right? Ken, you asked me that question, and it's just not. It's like high-speed ventures. I buy companies, I scale them. There's no part of my content strategy that is for that. The stuff I put out on social media is literally the YouTube is specific to SaaS Academy, our coaching company. Even that's moving away, and SaaS Academy, the YouTube channel, is going to be the primary channel, and then mine's going to be more of what is on Instagram, which is just personal development, mindset, ideas, stories, strategies for personal growth and kind of like Buyback Principle, because I've got a book deal that's coming out in January 2023, so that's coming out. But I don't even want to go to studios to shoot this. So what I do is I have two cameras, literally this one and another one on the side, and they run 3 hours a day. Like pretty much any meeting with other people where I'm giving advice, any meeting where literally if there's a meeting where I'm going to provide feedback, the record button gets sent, it automatically saves it onto Dropbox, and then my video editors go through and pick what they think is interesting for social media. So the crazy part is, Ken, see, this is how the sausage is made. I don't even know what gets posted on my Instagram.
Oh, you're not even looking at that.
Yeah, like all these videos,
yeah,
I see them when you see them.
Got it.
Yeah,
that's a lot of control you're giving to your team.
But I mean, I said it.
Yep.
So like I'm not giving them any control. It's not like they're walking around videotaping me when I wake up and I don't know they're there. It's like I hit the record button, I hit the end recording. Yep. But there's a bit of self-editing on like details of stories. I can't call people out sometimes to make the story even better, but it is what it is. So it's like, it's kind of crazy because I spend zero time creating content. It's what Gary says, document, don't create.
Don't create.
I just document, and it's...
So these are actual meetings you're having with team members or with clients?
100%. Yeah. These are all like, this is my life. Like when people think that all I do is train for Ironmans and wake surf and snowboard and stuff, I'm like, all these, this is me working.
Yeah.
Like this is all me actually working and talking to people.
Yeah. Recently I just started, and I'm going to put this on YouTube as well, but inside of my own paid community, I just started auditing famous people's channels on TikTok. I look at, I rewind 30 days because I don't want the recency to be a major factor. And I look at the last 60 posts. What are the winningest ones? What are the lowest ranking ones? And I analyze why I think they are that way. I look at headlines, titles, edits, music used, the content of the video. And I'm going to do yours at some point, and I'll share you that data with your team. And they might look, because it's really, I think that when it comes to that kind of content, when I say TikTok and Instagram Reels, I'm not looking for people who are doing song and dance and lip syncing and trend surfing. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people like you, entrepreneurs who have something that's working really well, and they're documenting and sharing a portion of that, and they're winning on TikTok and Instagram Reels. And so the real art of growing those, I'm finding, is in the curation. That is everything about whether it wins or not. Because if you have a 3 hour long meeting or even an hour long, and you're going to put 1 minute of that onto TikTok or Instagram Reels, that the first 3 seconds of what comes out of your mouth, not even the content matters as much as what is said, but even more than that is the title, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a big job to curate that content, because there's a lot.
Yeah, well, this is what I spend multiple six figures a year to produce the content.
Yeah.
There's no business value. Like, I mean, I'm coming out with a book. I've got an online platform.
But it's not a direct correlation or
No,
causation.
and it's like it doesn't make financial sense. Like it's so funny sometimes. People are like, "Oh, you're just trying to do this for this reason." I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like this is not a financial outcome. This is 100%. I want to help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't have the time to spend one-on-one, and I don't actually think that's the most efficient anyways.
Yeah.
And when I do take those meetings, guess what? I hit record, because if I'm going to give you advice, I'm going to everything, like every interview I do, like this one's going to get grabbed and sliced and put on my Instagram
So this is being
channel.
recorded on your end too, right?
Everything's recorded
Awesome.
all the time.
Yeah.
Anytime I'm talking, telling stories, giving feedback, etc. 100%.
Yeah, that's a lot of material. And it's interesting,
Yeah.
like Alex Hormozy, I was listening to him the other day, and he said, like if I doubled my income or quadrupled or 10x'd it, his lifestyle would not change. Like the utility of more money after you hit a certain amount doesn't actually make a big difference. And I think you're at that stage where it's not like I need to create content in order to get leads, in order to make sales calls, in order to have more customers. It's just
it actually is not the right strategy. Like this is what's funny is, like I have I don't know, almost 100 people in SaaS Academy. Like they create content every day.
Yeah.
That's the content that's going on. Like it's not the Dan Martell show. I don't need to be the face of it. I absolutely love helping other people. And if what I share in my stories and the strategies helps people, me and Alex have talked a lot about this. And it doesn't take away from the thing that I'm great at, which is helping companies scale and scaling companies and being a father and an athlete and all these things, then game on. But the moment that actually creating content would interfere from those other things, I'd probably stop doing it. And it's a double-edged sword because, like I want my ideas to be known. I don't actually want to be known, which is kind of crazy. But like, I've got a big enough audience of over 1 million followers across all platforms that like when I go out in public, sometimes I'm traveling, I'm recognized, and it's cool. But like the truth is I don't really seek that, right? I'm not putting my face on the cover of my book. I don't want to be on TV. I don't want to be known for the sake of being known. I want my ideas to help people. And it turns out, like you said earlier, the messenger matters, right? Who, like Alex is really smart, $100 million a year company. Like he starts off his videos. Why? Same reason that other guy starts off showing a picture of his Lamborghini or his McLaren. Like it builds instant credibility that then creates context for somebody to consume the content, because at the end of the day, it's to help people, right? And yeah, like this is what makes me laugh. Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, Alex Hormozy, Dan Martell, and a handful of other guys do not need to produce content. It will impact their life zero. Yeah. They're literally spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to help you. Is there an indirect correlation? Yes, because of the law of reciprocity and karma and you name it, right? I believe that God rewards those that supports life, and helping other people through sharing your stories helps life. But if you think they do it as a primary driver of revenue, you just haven't been in the game long enough. You're too early in your journey to understand that there's no reason for them to do it, right? Like Richard Branson produces Instagram content because he wants to share that himself. There's no commercial need to do that. Whether he posts that video or doesn't, it's not going to change his life. He decided to take time away. Like this is what's crazy, Ken, is like, and that's why I said if it actually took away from other stuff, then I probably wouldn't do it. But the fact that I can hit a button, record content, share it, and that be useful to people, fine, that's a fair trade. I don't mind spending some money to do that. But if it ever required more, personally, probably wouldn't do it. It's just not a good use of my time. But man, I'm happy I started producing videos, because my ability to communicate, persuade, inspire, I think people said this a long time ago, the person who can stand on stage and move a crowd, 100,000 people in a room to take action, to align with their vision, to help them accomplish their dreams, that's the highest paying job in the world, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a professional speaker, salesperson, CEO, investor, like that's a really important skill. And I cut my teeth, honestly, using Periscope. I don't remember back in the day, Ken, I actually started doing video, true video, but not YouTube video, on Periscope probably 2 years prior.
Yeah, yeah. And you're putting out a book now, and do you feel like the insights and the content you put out with the videos you made, is that helping you also to craft your book, seeing how, metaphors, stories, and things like that? Or is that kind of unrelated?
1,000%. Yeah. But here's the cool part is the way I wrote the book is I outlined the strategy and the whole outline. And then I went through my library content, actually used my videographer, and he found everything I mentioned in the book. He found 1 or 2 or 3 videos of me explaining it. Then I transcribed it, and then I edited it with my editor and researcher, and that's how I wrote the book. So it took me a fraction of the time to write this book because all the ideas were actually already shared multiple times sometimes. So that I didn't have to sit there and
It was more editing than writing then, wasn't it?
100% editing. I actually didn't do a lot of net new writing. It was almost cleaning things up in the order. I mean, I rewrote the book 3 times. When I say rewrote it, restructured it meaningfully, like new table of content, ripped out. Like the hardest part about writing a book is actually taking stuff out and making sure that it's crystal clear what you're trying to communicate, and every section and chapter kind of builds on itself. And I spent 2.5 years on this book. I'm incredibly proud of it. I had an incredible team support me on it. My designer, Rich, it's going to be an awesome book because the work that I learned about storytelling, metaphors, framework design, it's all part of that. My coaching clients is almost like cool, like steel sharpens steel. The need to communicate to my coaching clients really powerful strategies as fast as possible forced me to learn how to design frameworks that people could take, learn, and implement without me being there, which is going to show up in the book.
100%. I want to respect your time here and wrap this up soon. 2 last questions. Number 1 is, if somebody's in let's just say a business that's thinking about starting to create content as a part of their strategy, or maybe more mission-based like yours, how do you think they should start? Like, should they go out and buy all the equipment and do everything themselves and just, do research? Or like, what's a good starting position for somebody who's already got a working business?
Pull out your phone, hit the video camera, go record and say, what is up? My name's Dan Martell. I've got this idea on my heart. I got to share it with you. Here's what I'm thinking. Have an amazing day. Hang up. Publish it on social media. Just do something. Like, by the time you get ready, I could have produced 14 videos.
Yeah.
Your environment is not going to dictate the quality of the content. The content matters way more than the wrapper. It's just proof by viral content. Like if anything, the message matters. You can have the worst lit, as long as the audio is good. Ken, you know this. The audio has to be good. I'm wearing a lav right now. You've got a fancy mic. The audio and the message matters so much more. And the crazy part that the fact that we have these fully, like the new, and I don't know if you've just well, you know this, you're the video guy, but cinematic mode on the iPhone, like that mode is like crazy.
Yeah.
And I shot a video the other day with it, and my videographer's like, what did you do? Do more of that. And I was like, I'm using cinematic mode on my iPhone 13 Pro. And he's like, this is going to change the game. So like the fact that we have these things in our back pockets, just use it. And just work on learning how to storytell, how to share messages, how to get over your nerves, and get to a place where, I just always want to get to a point where somebody's like, hey man, our MC can't make it. I need somebody to open up for 3 minutes and kind of share their story about how they ended up in this room. Do you mind jumping on stage? And I'm like, yep, no problem. Yeah. And I can just go up there. This happened to me recently. I was at an event. This literally scenario happened. Person that was supposed to open wasn't there. And all I asked myself was, what's the story? What's the joke? How do I start? How do I end? Yeah. That was it. I knew if I had those 4 things, what's the story? What's the joke? How do I start? How do I end? Yeah. I just started. And guess what? If I forgot to say something, nobody else knows but me. If the joke didn't land, doesn't matter. I get a chance to practice, and it is what it is. I mean, I was actually recently, I posted, I think a couple days ago on my Facebook, I was given a talk. I was keynoting an event in Montreal. Huge event. I said yes because it was going to be like all of my ideal customer like ICPs in the room, and it was a paid gig because I do paid speaking, and I start off and my clicker is not working. So essentially like one click wouldn't register and then another click would fast forward 10 times. It was like the clicker and the AV team and whatever just was out of sync. And it was those moments where I was laughing because for most speakers, including me prior to that moment, the slides dictated everything, right? Like it reminded me what story to tell. It reminded me where I was in my presentation, the timekeeping. And I just laughed and I go, all right, Dan, it's time to implement what you've been practicing. And I just acknowledged what was going on to the crowd. I said, here's the reality. This clicker and those slides, they ain't syncing up. We're going to freestyle this talk, but my goal is to give you guys 110% and absolutely transform your lives. And if it works out, cool. If not, I'm not worried because I think we're going to be able to do what we need to do today. Are you guys down for that? Everybody said, yeah, let's do it. And I delivered it. And it turned out that it was one of the highest rated talks at the event, even though tech didn't work.
Yeah.
That would have never happened if I didn't start producing content on a YouTube channel, staring at a camera by myself in a studio.
And committing to that one take, right?
Yep.
Committing to one take.
It's the commitment to, and there's a great book called Turning Pro. I share this often with people because they always, they want advice on how to be a great salesperson, how to be a great CEO. And what I discovered is most people are interested in stuff, they're not committed. And until the day you decide that you want to be a pro. So a lot of people are, I'm interested in being the CEO or an entrepreneur. It's like, no. Commit to being a professional. A professional acts completely different than an amateur. Amateur basketball, professional basketball. Those are two different athletes. I am a professional. I'm a professional speaker. I'm a professional video producer. I'm a professional communicator. I'm a professional CEO. I'm a professional dad, and I'm I'm an amateur athlete. I'm not a professional athlete because
no one's paid you yet, but once they do, then you can say you're professional.
I feel like I could get sponsors, but out of pity, not necessarily excitement for distribution. But yeah, and I mean, but Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield will help a lot of people kind of make that decision.
I'm going to look that up. We're going to drop a link below. My final question, at what stage do you think somebody who's producing video and owns a business should hire help to do it versus trying to DIY it?
Well, so my philosophy is the Buyback Principle. And the way I think about it is you don't hire people to add capacity to your business. You hire people to buy back your time. Now that if you do it right, it'll add capacity, but more importantly, it'll make the activity more fun for you, which means you will keep doing it longer. Okay. And that's called the infinite game. That's why, like, people ask me, like, when do you recharge? How do you relax? And I'm like, every day. Like, it's part of my life. I work really hard and I mountain bike and I 2 hours on the road bike this morning and, whatever. Like, it's part of my life. There's no grinding because anything that feels like work, I hire people to do that so that I do the thing that's my genius. So if you want to learn how to edit your videos, go ahead. But after 20 videos, you'll probably go like, that's a lot of time. It's not really worth the squeeze. I'm just going to spend the money to have somebody else do it because then you can take that time, go work on sales, marketing, run your business, shoot more videos, whatever it is. So if you can afford it up front, I'm a big fan of like doing the thing that only you can do and then have somebody else support you because it'll make it more fun, which means you won't stop doing it. And here's the truth, Ken. Having somebody else you're committed to in the pursuit of being a professional at it or getting proficient at it is actually a hack. So like oftentimes I pay. So like I have a swim coach because I don't love swimming, but I'm an Ironman athlete and turns out you got to learn how to swim. I pay the coach to force me to show up to the pool because I know if I don't, he knows I didn't show up. And for me, when I make a commitment, it means a lot. So I don't want to let people down. That's just something that's smart. So if you know you got to produce videos and you should go in the studio once a week, having somebody else show up that shoots and edits for you can be not only productive, but also a productivity hack.
Yeah, that's super, super effective. I have an assistant. And if it's something I don't want to do, I literally say, don't let me get off the Zoom call until I'm done with it. She doesn't even know what I'm doing. But the fact that she's there,
you just schedule it. I put it in the agenda so they know what I got to produce. But it's just they're on the call and they're doing emails, they're doing whatever. But it's just a commitment to produce an outcome. Yeah.
All right. Final question. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, get in line for that book that's about to come out, or
Yeah.
or maybe join your SaaS program where you help people. What's the best way for people to find you?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I always say, I mean, my email is dan@danmartell.com. So 2L's at martell.com. My assistant will pick it up and triage it to the right person if you're interested in coaching or the book or whatever. Instagram, Instagram/Dan Martell, 2L's at Martell. That's like the business behind the scenes. My YouTube channel, same name. That's the how-to content. And then I'm on all the other social platforms, but each one has a different theme, right? So like what I put out on LinkedIn is a little different than what I put out on TikTok. It's a little different than what I put out on YouTube. Yeah, I'm a big fan of connecting with my community. So hit me up if anything I've shared has added value to your life. And JFDI, that's my motto in life. If it speaks to you, it resonates with you, make the commitment before you convince yourself out of it.
All right, Dan, thanks so much for joining me, guys. I put the links down below in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be down in the description. Dan, this was extremely valuable, and thank you so much for being on the show. I think that you dropped so many bombs that I think if someone was writing notes, their pencil, it would already be like halfway through by now through this. I appreciate you, and
Thanks,
thanks for being on the show.
Cheers. Peace.